The secret relationship between brother and sister leads to a terrible sin. The town of Willow Creek was quiet in a way that felt almost suffocating. Wooden fences leaned with age, the main street's paint faded by years of harsh summers and cold winters. For Elena Pierce, it was a home she had escaped once and never thought she'd return to. But her father's illness had brought her back. Elena stepped out of the cab, the dusty gravel crunching beneath her boots. The farmhouse ahead looked smaller than she remembered, its white paint peeling like dry skin. A soft wind carried the scent of damp earth and old memories. "Ellie," the voice startled her. She turned to see Daniel, her older brother, leaning against the porch railing. His dark hair was longer now, his smile warm, maybe too warm. "Daniel," she breathed, forcing a smile as he embraced her. His arms were firm, lingering just a second too long. "You're home," he said, almost possessively. Inside, the house felt frozen in time. Her father rested in the back room, frail and asleep, leaving Elena and Daniel alone in the creaking silence. As night settled, Elena unpacked in her old bedroom. She noticed Daniel hovering in the hallway, watching her with a protective gaze that made her uneasy. Later, while searching through an old dresser, she found a faded photograph. She and Daniel as children, their arms around each other, grinning. Her fingers trembled as she held it, a shadow of memory tugging at her mind, a memory she wasn't ready to face. Behind her, the floor creaked. She froze, clutching the photo, as Daniel's voice drifted softly from the doorway. "Everything's going to be like it used to be. Ellie." Her heart thudded in her chest. The morning light slipped through the thin curtains of Elena's childhood bedroom, revealing walls still lined with faded posters and shelves of dusty books. It felt like stepping back into a version of herself she no longer recognized. She sat at the kitchen table, staring into a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Daniel moved about the kitchen with practiced ease, frying eggs and humming an old tune their mother used to sing. "You didn't sleep much," he observed, sliding a plate in front of her. "Too much on my mind," Elena murmured. Daniel's smile was warm, but his tone carried an edge. "You'll get used to being home again. Just don't overdo it with visiting people or running off. Dad needs stability." "We need stability," Elena frowned. "I wasn't planning on running off." "I'm not a kid anymore, Daniel." He chuckled lightly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "You'll always be my kid sister." Later that afternoon, Elena wandered into Harper's Diner, a cozy spot that smelled of coffee and nostalgia. She almost didn't recognize Mark, her childhood friend, until he turned and grinned. "Elena Pierce. Back in town for good?" he asked, his voice warm. They caught up over pie and coffee, laughter easing Elena's tension for the first time since her return. But when the bell above the door jingled, Daniel appeared, his gaze zeroing in on them. His jaw tightened as he approached. "Didn't know you were meeting anyone," he said flatly. Mark offered his hand, but Daniel ignored it, his arm sliding around Elena's shoulders with a possessiveness that made her stomach twist. On the walk home, Daniel was silent, his mood unreadable. Elena told herself she was imagining things, though deep down, unease had already taken root. The storm rolled in just after midnight, rattling the old farmhouse windows like a living thing. Rain lashed against the glass and thunder cracked so loudly it seemed to shake the walls. Elena sat curled on the worn couch, arms wrapped around herself. Sleep felt impossible. Too many memories lurked in the shadows, waiting to ambush her the moment her eyes closed. Daniel entered quietly, carrying 2 mugs of tea. "Figured you'd be awake," he said, settling beside her. His voice was softer than usual, almost tender. "Couldn't sleep," she admitted, watching lightning flash outside. "Feels like the house is coming apart." Daniel chuckled faintly. "Just like when we were kids, hiding under the blankets while Dad shouted at Mom." Elena's throat tightened. "You remember that too?" "Every word," he said, his expression darkening. "I promised myself I'd protect you from all that. From everything." She met his gaze, seeing not just her brother, but the only constant she'd ever had in a chaotic childhood. The storm outside roared, but inside, the silence between them felt louder. "You did protect me," she whispered, her voice breaking. He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. His touch lingered, heavy with unspoken meaning. Elena should have pulled away, but she didn't. The next moments blurred, a rush of heat and confusion, the storm outside mirroring the chaos inside her. Morning light streamed through the curtains. Elena sat up in bed, heart pounding, the taste of regret sharp in her mouth. Daniel appeared in the doorway, perfectly calm, as if nothing had happened. "Coffee's ready," he said casually. Later, alone in the shower, Elena pressed her hands to her face and sobbed silently, the water washing away tears, but not the shame. For the first few days, Elena clung to denial. It was a mistake, she told herself over and over, the words echoing in her mind like a mantra. It won't happen again. It can't happen again. He reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. His touch lingered, heavy with unspoken meaning. Elena should have pulled away, but she didn't. The next moments blurred, a rush of heat and confusion, the storm outside mirroring the chaos inside her. Morning light streamed through the curtains. Elena sat up in bed, heart pounding, the taste of regret sharp in her mouth. Daniel appeared in the doorway, perfectly calm, as if nothing had happened. "Coffee's ready," he said casually. Later, alone in the shower, Elena pressed her hands to her face and sobbed silently, the water washing away tears, but not the shame. For the first few days, Elena clung to denial. It was a mistake, she told herself over and over, the words echoing in her mind like a mantra. It won't happen again. It can't happen again. But Daniel's behavior told a different story. At breakfast, he sat across from her with a possessive calm, asking detailed questions about where she planned to go and who she might see. When she mentioned stopping by the diner, his tone sharpened. "Why bother with people who never cared about us before?" he said, setting his coffee cup down a little too hard. "You don't need anyone else, Ellie. You have me." The way he said it sent a chill through her. When she later tried to visit Mark, Daniel appeared unexpectedly, leaning casually against his truck as if by coincidence. Elena knew it wasn't. Each day the walls seemed to close in tighter. Her nights were restless, haunted by flashes of that stormy night, the heat of Daniel's touch, the shameful way she hadn't stopped it. She began to jump at every sound, convinced people were watching, whispering, knowing. In the mirror, her reflection looked hollow-eyed, unfamiliar. Even the house seemed to change, its rooms darker, the air heavier. Lying awake one night, Elena realized it wasn't just the memory that was destroying her. It was Daniel's growing grip on her life, squeezing tighter until she could barely breathe, and she feared there was no escape. Elena sat at the far end of the diner, staring blankly into her untouched cup of tea. The warmth had long since faded, leaving only a bitter taste on her tongue. Across the room, Mark watched her with growing concern. Finally, he slid into the booth beside her, his voice soft. "Elena, you've been back for weeks, and every time I see you, you look worse." His hand brushed lightly against hers. "Tell me what's going on." Her throat tightened. Words rose, choked, then fell apart. "If I tell him, he'll never look at me the same." "I can't," she whispered. Mark's brow furrowed. "You can. Whatever it is, you don't have to face it alone." Tears welled in her eyes. She turned away, staring at the streaked window, the rain beyond it blurring the world into gray shapes. I feel trapped," she said finally, her voice breaking. "Like there's no way out." Mark reached for her hand again, firmer this time. "There's always a way out. Leave with me, Elena. Come stay at my place until you figure things out. Please." Before she could answer, a shadow fell over the booth. Daniel stood outside the diner, his gaze locked on them through the glass. His face was unreadable, but his stillness made Elena's blood run cold. That night the storm broke inside their home. Daniel cornered her in the kitchen, his breath ragged, his voice low and venomous. "I saw you with him," he hissed. "Do you think I don't notice?" When she tried to step back, his hand shot out, clamping around her wrist with terrifying strength. Pain shot up her arm. "Daniel, you're hurting me," she cried. He didn't let go, and for the first time, Elena saw the monster hiding behind his protective smile. Elena sat on the edge of her bed, her wrist still throbbing beneath the sleeve of her sweater. Purple bruises bloomed like dark flowers beneath her skin. She cradled her arm and stared at the small duffel bag half-packed at her feet. "I have to get out. I have to leave before he destroys me completely." Her thoughts came in frantic whispers, looping over and over as she carefully folded clothes, stuffing them into the bag as quietly as possible. Every creak of the floorboards made her freeze. Down the hall, Daniel's footsteps moved back and forth. His voice drifted through the house, low and smooth. As he hummed an old lullaby their mother used to sing, the sound made her stomach twist. When he finally appeared in the doorway, Elena's hands went rigid. "There you are," Daniel said softly, his tone syrup-sweet. "I was worried." "You've been distant." She forced a smile. "Just tired, that's all." His eyes narrowed, sharp as knives. "You wouldn't lie to me, would you, Lena?" "No," she whispered. In a sudden shift, he crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight. "Too tight. You're all I have," he murmured into her hair. "Don't ever forget that." Elena stood rigid, trapped between his false tenderness and the violent anger she knew lurked just beneath. The house itself seemed to mirror her suffocation. Paint peeled from the walls like dead skin. The once bright curtains hung in tatters, barely filtering the gray light. Every corner smelled of mildew and old memories, a decaying shrine to their shared past. This wasn't a home anymore. It was a cage, and Elena knew that if she didn't escape soon, she'd never make it out alive. The next morning, Elena moved through the house like a ghost, her mind spinning from a night of restless, broken sleep. She had almost finished packing her bag when the sudden sound of tires crunching on gravel outside made her freeze. Her heart thudded. Through the cracked curtain, she saw Mark's old pickup truck pulling into the driveway. "No," she whispered, panic clawing at her throat. "Not now. Not when Daniel's here." Before she could react, Mark was already at the front door, knocking sharply. "Elena?" "It's me," he called, his voice filled with worry. "We need to talk." Daniel appeared from the kitchen, his jaw tightening. "What the hell is he doing here?" Elena stepped forward, hands raised. "Daniel, please just stay calm." But Daniel was already yanking open the door. "What do you want, Mark?" Daniel's voice was cold, almost mocking. Mark's gaze flicked from Daniel to Elena, taking in her pale face and trembling hands. "I came to see Elena. She hasn't been herself. I just want to make sure she's okay." "She's fine," Daniel snapped. "She doesn't need you meddling in our business." Mark's brow furrowed. "Your business? She's your sister, Daniel. Why are you acting like you own her?" A dangerous silence filled the air. Daniel's breathing quickened, his eyes burning with a wild, possessive fury. "You wouldn't understand," he hissed. "You've never been us. You've never been what we are." The cryptic words hung in the air like a blade. Elena's breath caught, terror freezing her in place. Mark's face went pale as realization began to dawn. "You're sick," Mark said, voice trembling. "This isn't right." "I'm coming back for her." He turned and stormed out, tires screeching as his truck sped away. Behind Elena, Daniel whispered darkly, "He's not taking you anywhere." The house felt different after Mark's visit, thicker somehow, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Elena spent the evening pacing her room, staring at her half-packed bag and flinching at every creak of the old floorboards. Downstairs, Daniel moved in erratic bursts. Sometimes she heard him pacing like a caged animal, other times muttering to himself in sharp, disjointed fragments. When the clock struck midnight, Elena decided to slip out. She grabbed her bag and tiptoed down the hall, her heart pounding so loudly she thought it would give her away. She was almost to the front door when Daniel's voice cut through the darkness. "Going somewhere, Lena?" Elena froze. He stood in the living room, shadows slicing across his face. His eyes glistened, not with tears, but with a raw, dangerous rage. "You were going to leave me," he said, voice trembling. "After everything we've been through." "Daniel, please," she whispered, taking a step back. "You don't understand." "No," he snapped, advancing toward her. "You don't understand." "You've been talking to Mark, plotting with him, turning him against me. I saw the way you looked at him." "It's not like that," Elena cried. "I just want to be free. This isn't right." Something inside Daniel shattered. With a guttural yell, he lunged at her, knocking the bag from her hands. They struggled, crashing into the coffee table, sending a lamp shattering across the floor. For the first time, Elena fought back. She clawed at his arms, kicked against his legs, fueled by pure desperation. "Stop fighting me," Daniel roared, shoving her toward the fireplace. "No," she screamed, pushing him with all her strength. His foot slipped on a shard of broken glass. There was a sickening crack as his head struck the stone hearth. Daniel collapsed, motionless, blood pooling beneath him. Elena stumbled backward, chest heaving, staring at her trembling hands. "Daniel," she whispered. Silence. She stood over him, heart pounding, unable to tell if her brother was dead or if the nightmare had only just begun. Elena stumbled into the cold night air, her bare feet slipping on wet grass as she ran. Behind her, the house loomed like a dark silhouette, its windows glowing faintly, a silent witness to the chaos inside. Her breath came in ragged gasps. "Keep moving. Don't look back." The dirt road blurred beneath her as she sprinted toward the only place she could think of, Mark's home. Each step felt like wading through quicksand, every heartbeat a deafening drum in her ears. By the time she reached his porch, her legs gave out. She pounded on the door with trembling fists. It flew open to reveal Mark, his face etched with worry. "Elena, what happened to you?" She collapsed into his arms, sobbing. I can't, Daniel. There was blood." The words tumbled out in fragments, broken pieces of a truth she couldn't fully say. Mark held her at arm's length, searching her wild eyes. "Slow down. Tell me what happened. You're scaring me. We can't call anyone," she choked out, shaking her head violently. "Please, Mark, no police." His expression hardened. "Elena, this is serious. If Daniel hurt you, if there's been an accident, they have to know." "No," she cried, clutching his shirt. "You don't understand. They'll find out everything." Before Mark could respond, the distant wail of sirens cut through the night. Elena froze. A strangled sound caught in her throat. As blue and red lights streaked across the horizon, her secret was coming for her. The flashing lights bathed the night in cold, stuttering color. Elena stood rigid on Mark's porch, clutching a blanket around her shoulders as uniformed officers moved past her. Detective Aaron Harper stepped out of the squad car, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the gravel. His sharp eyes scanned the scene, lingering briefly on Elena before shifting to Mark. "Who called it in?" Harper's voice was calm, steady. "I did," Mark said, his jaw tight. Something happened at Elena's house. I think her brother's hurt." Harper gave a short nod and motioned for 2 officers to secure the property. "Stay here. I'll check it out." Minutes later, Harper returned, his expression unreadable. "We found Daniel," he said. "Barely alive, but unconscious. Paramedics are stabilizing him now." His gaze locked on Elena. "Can you tell me what happened?" Elena's throat closed. It was an accident," she whispered. "We argued, he slipped and hit his head. That's all." Her voice wavered, and Harper tilted his head slightly, watching her too closely. "Accidents happen," he said evenly. "But most people don't run through the night barefoot unless they're afraid of something." Elena's stomach twisted. She looked down, unable to meet his eyes. As Harper stepped aside to speak with an officer, Mark studied Elena with growing unease. Pieces were clicking together, the bruises, Daniel's possessive behavior, Elena's constant fear in Elena's mind. Fragmented memories surged like jagged glass. Daniel's hand on hers during childhood, his whisper in the dark, the first moment she hadn't pulled away. Her breath hitched. Harper turned back, his tone sharper now. "We'll need a full statement at the station." No details left out. Elena nodded mechanically, but inside, her world was crumbling. Mark's eyes widened as the terrible truth began to take shape. The sterile beeping of machines filled Daniel's hospital room. His face was pale beneath the harsh fluorescent lights, but his eyes were sharp, calculating. Detective Harper stood at the foot of the bed, notebook in hand. "Daniel, can you tell me what happened that night?" Daniel's lips trembled, and for a moment he seemed fragile, vulnerable. Then, with a careful breath, his voice came low and trembling. "It was Mark," he whispered. "He's always been obsessed with Elena. He barged into the house, started yelling. I tried to protect her. He attacked me." Mark, standing outside the glass window, slammed his fist against the frame. "That's a lie!" he shouted, his voice muffled by the glass. Harper's brow furrowed, his gaze flicking between them. Elena stood frozen beside him, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Daniel turned his head toward her, his expression softening into something chillingly familiar. "Lena," he said gently, Tell them how he's been harassing you." Elena's breath caught. In that moment she understood. Daniel would burn the entire world down to keep their secret buried, even if it meant destroying Mark. "No," she whispered. Daniel's smile faltered. Tears blurred her vision as she turned to Harper. It wasn't Mark, she said, her voice breaking. It was us, me and Daniel. I can't keep lying. The words poured out in jagged fragments, nights of manipulation, forbidden moments, the twisted bond that had trapped her for years. Harper's face remained stoic, but his eyes revealed the shock beneath. When she finished, silence settled over the room like a heavy fog. You did the right thing, Harper said at last, his voice low. But this truth, it's going to cost you. Elena collapsed into sobs. Knowing he was right, the police station echoed with chaos. Daniel thrashed against the officers holding him. His usually composed face twisted into something monstrous. Spit flew from his lips as he screamed her name. Lena! You can't do this to me. We belong together. His voice was raw, desperate, no longer charming or controlled. The mask he had worn for years finally shattered, revealing the darkness beneath. Elena stood behind the glass partition, her body trembling. Every word felt like a knife slicing through her chest. Get him out of my sight, Detective Harper ordered, his tone sharp. The officers dragged Daniel down the corridor, his screams fading into guttural echoes. For the first time in years, the house of lies Daniel had built was gone, and yet Elena felt no relief. Later, she sat by the window of Harper's office, staring at the town beyond. The same streets she had once walked as a child now felt foreign, suffocating. She thought of Mark, of the pain she'd caused him, of the hollow space where her family used to be. Daniel was gone, but the memories weren't. They clung to her skin like smoke, impossible to wash away. As dawn broke, Elena stepped outside. The main street lay empty, bathed in pale morning light. She walked slowly, her silhouette small against the vast horizon. Justice had been served, but some sins, she knew, could never be forgiven, and hers would haunt her forever.